Okay, well, as you can see, this video blog comes to you for a world of Grand Theft Auto 4, and we are going to murder a prostitute. Dearie me, I hate her for making me do it. So she's going to get out the motor, take my money, go out the motor, and she thinks that's her heading back to her pals to get her next pal of the night. No, but her life is going to end in about 5 fucking seconds. So get out the motor. This is what I do. Baseball bat, right?
I think we'll actually stop it there.
Right, not going on the deck.
There's more, but I don't think you need to see it. The point, I think, is made. This is out on YouTube. You can find it.
You can find worse than that on YouTube.
Yeah, I know. I did do a little bit of self-censorship. But I suppose what I'm really asking is, and this relates to something you were saying to me again, Sam, before we got up, most women in this room would not be directly confronted by people expressing those sort of attitudes to them or in the circles in which they move. But there's a lot of this out there, and what does that mean?
Look, I'm always really staggered when women express surprise about the way men talk. I'm staggered that Kyle Sandilands even rates a mention, because I told a story on a TV show that I sometimes do, Mia Freedman's show, Mamma Mia. I went to the art gallery in New South Wales about 5-6 years ago, and there was a very, very well-known musician, classical musician, about to give a talk. Now, the air that he breathes, I'm sure, is similar to some of the justices that are sitting here. And some of you guys, you know, he's not going down the pub and having beers and playing pool with tradies. He's a classically trained musician giving a speech at the Art Gallery of New South Wales. And I was introduced to him, and he obviously looked me up and down, listened to me speak, and thought, well, here's a blokey bloke. I better bond with him. And he shook my hand. He said, "Hey, g'day, mate." I said, "Oh, yeah, what are you talking about, mate?" He said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "Hey, what do you say to a chick who's got 2 black eyes?" And I said, "I've heard the joke, mate." He goes, "Nothing, you've already said it." And this is a dude, like, I can't say his name, but you know who I'm talking about. And that was a way he saw to quickly bond with another man, was through misogyny, was through violence against women. Do I believe that he's violent against women? Probably not. He's a weed, for starters, but again, that's another myth about violence against women. You don't need to be a big, tough, tattooed biker to be violent towards women. But he saw that as a way to effectively score points with what he saw to be as a guy of greater yobbo-ness. And it's something that you see all the time. You know, I've been in pubs where, you know, a girl will walk past and someone will say, "I got your halves in a rape charge." And that's the thing about the White Ribbon campaign, where it makes me draw breath, because if you were to say, you know, that's not acceptable, every time somebody said something like that, you'd be getting punched in the head a lot.
I think there's a lot of similarities with what Sam just said there. I mean, it happens with misogyny, it happens with racism. Like, one of the strongest ways people bond is around a common prejudice. It's a very powerful form of bonding, and a common enemy, even if we don't identify them as an enemy. One of my favourite sayings by any academic is that the best way to have world peace is to organise a war with Mars. You know, suddenly everyone will be bonded. You know, there's a thing, yeah, see, we're off. But the point you make about the internet's an interesting one, because what the internet has done is, remember the stuff I was saying before about our public selves, our private selves, the public space. What the internet has done is it's pushed our private selves much more into the public. So none of this is new. It's not as though this sort of darkness has never dwelt within us until the internet came along. It's just now that we have avenues for expressing it, and we do. And all you need to do is go on any news website and read the comments to just about any story, and you'll see what I mean. The question that's relevant for us is what's the social effect of that, I think. And here, I have to confess, I'm a little worried because really sort of, and these are kind of radical ideas that are being expressed here, or they would be seen as, they're not mainstream, they're not, you don't mention them in polite company. But what you do when you create an online space is you create, sociologically, is you create a free space where all these ideas that would once be seen as deviant or radical or beyond the pale become normalised in a particular context. That context may not be normal, but the thing about the cyber world is you don't need to escape that context. And one of the areas this has been really, really prevalent and observable is in the area of white supremacy. White supremacist groups are doing really, really well at the moment partly because of what the online world does. So I don't know if the same thing is happening with respect to misogyny, but I would be surprised if it wasn't, because I think the dynamics of
Well, we're running out of time, so I can't throw you the questions I was going to about the recent publicity about women bloggers and the level of misogyny and rape threats in responses to women bloggers. What I want to do instead is end on something I hope is slightly more positive and something that picks up a little bit about Sam's point of about in some circles you'll hear it all the time, but we won't be reading it in the mainstream press anymore because they don't do it. We don't see it much on mainstream TV anymore because generally they don't do it. It's in the areas that are the new burgeoning forms of media and communication that we're seeing it most. But it's all it is an expression of the attitudes that are often out there. And so I just want to play a bit of an interview that the then acting, now Chief Commissioner of Police of Victoria gave just recently, dealing with recent crime stats, and then ask for your final comments on that.
In Victoria, reports of family violence have jumped by more than 25% in the last year.
Look, we know that family violence has impacted on a whole lot of areas of crime over recent years. We're seeing almost a quarter of all assaults in this state are actually occurring in a family violence setting. Traditionally, when people think about not being safe, they think about being at a railway station or a street where they might get assaulted. But our data is very, very clear that there's far greater risk of being assaulted if you're in a family environment. We're seeing family violence creating spikes in sexual assault. We're seeing property damage, again related to family violence, and even in abduction offences. We're now starting to see increases in abductions that actually relate to family incidents where children are being taken from the home.
Acting Chief Commissioner Ken Lay says even more worrying is that this is likely to be the tip of the iceberg.
Family violence clearly is an issue that we need to address. Continue to work with our partners, continue to work with the community. It's insidious.
However, police and domestic violence agencies say the increase in family violence is likely to be the result of increased reporting of domestic violence crimes rather than a severe spike in actual incidents. Ken Lay says it's an area police have been focusing on.
I think the reporting's getting better. I've got no doubt at all, though, that there is many, many thousands of assaults happening in the home that we simply do not know about. The community has got to get to a space where it finds this, where it says that this is totally unacceptable. We don't know the full scope of family violence across our community. All we do know is it's having an enormous impact on our crime rate. It's having.
So
that was
we've
your
got
positive note?
Yeah. My positive note is it's coming out in the open more. People are talking about it, they're reporting it more, and the police are saying we've got to get people into a headspace where they see this is unacceptable. It seems to me that that's the counterpoint to a lot of this misogyny that we've been talking about in these areas of media violence. But how do you change the attitudes when you've got all that stuff out there in the media? You've got a minute to solve the problems of the world, each of you, or at least this one.
Yeah. Can I have 50 thinking seconds? And then
do you want to go first,
Yeah,
Sam?
I think it's blindingly obvious that we spend 16, 17 years teaching kids how to do the cube square of a number or measure the distance from Dresden to Dubbo, when in fact children should, from the first day they're at school, have relationship lessons. They should be taught how to interact with the opposite sex. They should be taught respect for the opposite sex. They should be, because I believe that most gender resentment, most misogyny has its roots in either the family home or in the schoolyard. And that for every Kyle Sandilands, you'll find a fat kid that was teased by the pretty girl at school or who was ignored. I think that children need to be taught how to initiate sexuality between each other, and more importantly, how to reject and not wound and humiliate. These are skills that every child will need until the day they die, yet we do not teach them. And they, to me, are the very core of a lot of the gender dysfunction that we have in the world. The second thing that we need to recognise is that violence, as you said, is a form of violation. The gentleman that you were interviewing this morning, the Aboriginal guy, talked about in Aboriginal communities now they've started to define things as lateral violence. Things like backstabbing, bitching, gossiping about people. And I think that women as well as men need to realise that lateral violence can be as important as violence. I'm not saying that either is good, but lateral violence instigates much physical violence. And we need to start recognising the fact that lateral violence can be as destructive as physical violence.
Has he taken my minute?
You can still have a minute.
I just finished on the thought that the language from authority figures is very important. And so you're right to identify that as something that's at least we can hang on to. And there is this weird disconnection which goes back to the internet point. And that is that as our sort of authoritative discourse becomes more engaged with these things, you do get an underbelly that grows bigger and wilder in the opposite direction. So while there is some comfort to be taken from the evolution of authoritative discourse, I think you can very easily become complacent as a result of that. You know, there's a lot more to the way that attitudes form within a society.
I'm told we've got to stop the discussion at the moment, which is a pity because I think Sam and Waleed could have continued to provoke us for a lot longer. But it's time to thank them and to move on to questions from the floor.